Blog Talk Radio.
All right, turn it up and stand back. You're about to feel our reach. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for
Hard Starboard Radio.
We've been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. Above all, stay alive. You have no idea how important you are and how important you will become. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance. What happened here? Judgment Day happened.
Last day of the rest of my life, I wish I would've known, cause I didn't kiss my mama goodbye. I didn't tell her that I loved her, how much I cared. I thank my pops for all the talks and all the wisdom he shared. Unaware, I just did what I always do. Every day the same routine before I skate up to school. But who knew that this day wasn't like the rest? Instead of taking the test, I took two to the chest. Call me blind, but I didn't see it coming. And everybody was running, but I couldn't hear nothing except gun blast. It happened so fast, I didn't really notice it. Though I survived in class. Maybe this kid was reaching out for love, or maybe for a moment he forgot who he was, or maybe this kid just wanted to be hugged. Whatever it was, I know it's because we are the youth of the nation. We are youth of the nation. We are the youth of the nation. We are youth of the nation. Little Susie, she was only 12. She was given the world with every chance to excel. Hang with the boys and hear the stories they tell. She might act kind of proud but no respect for herself. She finds love in all the wrong places. The same situations, just different faces. Changed up her pace since her daddy left her. Too bad he never told her she deserved much better. Johnny boy always played the fool. He broke all the rules so you would think he was cool. He was never really one of the guys. No matter how hard he tried, up the thought of suicide. It's kind of hard when you ain't got no friends. He put his life to an end. They might remember him then. You crossed the line and there's no turning back. Told the world how he felt with the sound of a cat. We are the youth of the nation. We are youth of
got to be kidding me. You're it? You're Black Plastic!
No, Jasmius.
Time to play the game. Time to play the game! It's all about the game, and how you play it, all about control. And if you can take it, all about your stay. And if you can play it, it's all about pain. And who's gonna make it? I am the game, you don't wanna play me. I am control, no way you can shake me. I am heavy debt, no way you can pay me. I am the pain, and I know you can't take me. Look over your shoulder, ready to run like a Cleveland bitch from a smoking gun. I am the game, and I make the rules.
And it is back to the old grind here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. Oh, hold on a second. Okay, now it's back to the same old grind here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network. See, I had to turn on the Jasmius cam because I remember belatedly during the musical montage, oh yeah, I got to set up the Jasmius cam to set up or to record the video end of these proceedings. And of course, if this is the most listened to podcast of the week, then the Jasmius cam footage for today will be uploaded to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/hardstarboardradio sometime next week. So at any rate, we are back to the old grind. The holiday season, which is generally demarcated as being from Thanksgiving to New Year's, is behind us. Another one is behind us. I've now, well, I guess technically I would have been there for the one in 1964. So I guess that does make 50 of them that I have. No, actually, maybe even. No, I guess it's 51 holiday seasons that I've been through. Because of course I was born on Halloween, 3 days before the 1964 presidential election. So I've been through 51 holiday seasons now, and they all go the same way. They just we get to Thanksgiving, then it's just whoosh, and it's all of a sudden January 5th or the following year, and it's like, well, where did this time go? And just like whenever anybody says that to me, where does the time go? I always tell them the same thing: into the past, which is a snarky answer, but at times I can relate to what those people who say, where does the time go, are getting at. Because it does go quickly. I mean, it wasn't very long ago that intern Missius was visiting for 4 or 5 days Thanksgiving, and then she was here for 3 weeks along with her cat, Meaty. Meaty. That's what I always say around here, and she likes that. She comes over and purr, meow, meow, and then in fact, she really likes having you pet her all the way down to her tail, which is like an antenna aerial on a car. And I don't know, it's probably because that's one of the few places even cats can't reach as far as biting or scratching. So be that as it may, they're both back where they were before all the holiday festivities started, and we are back doing what we do Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. Guest call-in number 646-478-5068. Email address jasmies@comcast.net. Chat room is open for one and all to come in and behave yourselves, but otherwise enjoy yourselves. Of course, I'm fresh off my latest guest hosting gig on Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs on AM 1050 KCAA, KCAA FM 106.3, KCAAradio.com. And it's funny because I've now guest hosted, sat in for Mr. Constitution himself, Douglas V. Gibbs, on 7 occasions, stretching over the last couple of years. And it's funny because, and this applies to podcasts here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network as well. Some days you feel like, wow, that was a great show. I just knocked it out of the park. I was full of energy. I just nailed everything. And then other days it's like, it wasn't terrible, but it could have been better, you know. And that's the feeling I had Saturday, 48 hours ago. Yeah, exactly 48 hours ago, because I got off the air on KCAA 48 hours and 12 minutes ago. So this is exactly when I was having these thoughts. And really, I was feeling a little bit out of sorts on Saturday. It wasn't not ill, but just, you know, like, you know how some days, especially when you get older, you feel like, maybe I'll just go back to bed. You feel like doing that, although you're not quite old enough to where it's justifiable, but you feel like doing it. So, you know, I it wasn't so much that I didn't feel up to hosting the show for Doug, but it just felt like, no, I didn't quite have it all. You know, it's just like in athletics. You know, some days even the best athletes are right on the money, just darts, throwing pinpoint passes into coverage. And then other days, you got to grind a little bit. And Saturday was one of those days when I felt like I was grinding. And in fact, Doug called after the show and said, "Hey, how'd the show go?" Because, of course, Doug was at an activism class, and that gets into the point I'm going to make here. And I said, well, in the words of former pro wrestling great and trainer of Mick Foley, a.k.a. Cactus Jack, a.k.a. Mankind, a.k.a. Dude Love, I said, well, it was not bad, which seemed to catch Doug a little bit by surprise, but I was just being honest. It wasn't, in my humble but experienced by over 7.5 years of podcasting and radio experience, I felt like it wasn't my best, but yeah, you know, I mean, it served the purpose. It was, you know, I mean, but it wasn't the best show I've ever done. And then I get feedback this morning indicating that one line at a show has apparently gotten a huge response, rave reviews, and it was when I said that Doug Gibbs attending an activism class, an activism seminar is like a camel taking a hump class. In other words, it's kind of redundant. I mean, it's like, you know, Doug could just as easily have been teaching that class as taking it. And apparently that got a huge response. So I guess it just goes to show that sometimes it's not the show that you do in toto, but if you can get a good sound bite out of it. And apparently that was a humdinger of a sound bite. And in fact, that's not the original one I'd come up with. I had another one, and then I forgot it. So then I came up with the camel hump punchline, and apparently that served the same purpose. And heck, for all I know, the original line that I forgot might have gotten an even bigger response. But you know, I'll do with this one. So in other words, sometimes in broadcasting, it's all about the sound bite, which, you know, or from which I think Barack Obama could take a lesson or two when he goes out and gives his historic speeches that nobody ever remembers except for the lies that get exposed later on. But, if you want to listen to my latest guest hosting gig, go to DouglasVGibbs.com, click on the Constitution Radio link, or the radio link, which will take you to a link to the podcast page at kcaaradio.com. Or you can listen to the rebroadcast of this past Saturday's Constitution Radio episode on our show page, blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network, the latest Hard Starboard Radio Weekend rebroadcast, which was yesterday, to hear the fun that we mice, a.k.a. Alex Ferguson and myself, had this past Saturday. And it will also be available probably sometime tomorrow on our other YouTube channel, youtube.com/user/American Daily Review 2, the number 2. Again, that'll be there sometime tomorrow. It's the entire Saturday afternoon extravaganza, 2 hours of American Daily Review at blogtalkradio.com/American Daily Review. And then the hour of Constitution Radio following. It's really a 3-hour program on 2 venues, 1 day a week, and it's going to be a 3-hour program on 1 venue 5 days a week. That becomes a national powerhouse through, presumably, the flagship station, KCAA AM 1050, FM 106.3, San Bernardino, Loma Linda. The Inland Talk Express, for no listeners left behind. So just be on the lookout for that. When I get to guest host, it's always an honor and a pleasure. And I, again, here on the air, express my gratitude to Mr. Gibbs for entrusting me with the hallowed and, I'm not going to say sacred, but the hallowed and honored CR, or Constitution Radio gold-pressed Latinum microphone. So just wanted to get that out of the way, get that off my proverbial chest. And while I still have a few table-setting moments left...
I am Douglas V. Gibbs, and I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men, and free men you are. What will you do with that freedom? Will you fight? Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom?
In every revolution, there's one man with a vision.
Perhaps today is a good day. Douglas V. Gibbs.
He's the one.
Working several jobs over the past decade, Douglas Gibbs pursued a calling. Excuse me. I mean, I got a cough button, but Is there a separate button for coughs, sneezes, and throat clearing at big time radio studios? I'm not really even sure about that. Although there doesn't appear, now that I think about it, to be a cough button at all at the palatial studios of KCAA, or at least so I judge from what I hear in my headphones every Saturday. But I digress. While working several jobs over the past decade, Douglas Gibbs pursued a calling, learning the Constitution of the United States. He objectively researched, dissected, and obtained illumination from each and every word in that historic document. This calling led Doug into Internet radio, the political pistachio radio revolution, which evolved into Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs, where he spoke on political news topics of the day, all the while using those events to illustrate the wisdom inherent in our founders and the Constitution itself. A humble man, Doug was soon asked to teach classes about the Constitution, and later to guest on other shows, and then on cable network news programs like Fox and Friends twice, like Sean Hannity, like Al Jazeera, including a return interview with Al Jazeera, which we talked about on Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs just 2 days ago. So that's another reason. In fact, we played a clip from Doug's Al Jazeera interview. So that's another reason to look up the podcast either at the Constitution Speaker podcast page at kcaaradio.com or the rebroadcast on yesterday's Hard Starboard Radio Weekend podcast at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network because Doug just embarrassed them again. And, of course, National Pubic Radio. Now, it's entirely believable that Doug was once turned down as a guest on a legal show because, see, the legal profession has this idea that they know about the Constitution, when what they really only know about is the absolute thicket of case law surrounding the Constitution. They don't understand the Constitution itself. They believe that the Constitution is whatever a judge says it is. And, of course, that's not what the founders intended, and Doug can't be trapped. And see, journalists have this idea that, well, they know pretty much everything about everything. And if you prove them wrong, well, then, as the interviewer on Al Jazeera America illustrated, if you prove them wrong, they just say, wow, we don't know anything about that here. We don't have any evidence of that here. What's your proof? Ha, ha, ha. Really is embarrassing. And I suppose they consider that demeaning to themselves and their precious egos, which, of course, is why they don't tend to have Doug on their programs. In fact, I'm a little surprised that Al Jazeera America actually had him back. I guess they thought, oh, it's been 6 months. Maybe we can trap him now, or maybe viewers have forgotten how he embarrassed us 6 months ago. And how did that turn out for you, Dale? Oh, man. It just doesn't get any better than that. Oh, but by the way, if you go to the Post, Doug's Post, I think it was late Friday night, early Saturday morning on politicalpistachio.com, you can watch the YouTube video as well, which Doug put up there. It doesn't have the video, but it has the audio of that interview. It's about 3.5 minutes. You will enjoy it immensely, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Gibbs is gregarious, earnest, and masterful in his ability to use current world events to help us all better understand this most historic document, the United States Constitution. Liberty Tree Media Group is proud to market Constitution Radio with Douglas V. Gibbs. Check out www.douglasvgibbs.com and his incredibly popular blog, due in no small part to yours truly, politicalpistachio.com. And I'm telling you, folks, it's just like when a volcano is building toward an eruption, but you don't quite know when it's going to actually break through the summit and produce an actual above-ground eruption. You know, you're waiting for it to happen. You don't know exactly when it's coming, but when it does, hoo hoo hoo, and things are happening behind the scenes. Things are happening below the surface. The harmonic tremors are tremoring. And when it does, baby, the dream, it will only have just begun. The Morning Jolt update team.
Where's this coming from?
What's the matter? Scared of a little lightning? Overly fond of what follows.
The fight for the speakership, about a dozen votes away from being high drama. Now, I'd actually forgotten that Louis Gaymard of Texas's 1st Congressional District was thinking about throwing his hat into the ring for running for Speaker for that post currently held by John Boehner of Ohio's 8th Congressional District, but indeed he is. In fact, we've got 3 Republicans interested in being Speaker of the House, the third one being Ted Yoho. I'm not making that up. That's his name, Y-O-H-O, Yoho, which I have endless fun with on politicalpistachio.com. I mean, yo-ho-ho in a bottle of rum, avast ye hearties, yo-ho, yo-ho-ho, who's gonna know? He's from Florida's 3rd Congressional District, as it happens, and I actually think that he creates some serious problems for Louis Gaymard's quest. Now, Gaymard says they'll need 29 House Republicans to say that they're not supporting Boehner. Now, 29, of course, is the number of dissenting votes that there needs to be in order to deny John Boehner an outright majority on the speakership vote coming up tomorrow. In November, Americans elected 247 House Republicans. However, Representative Michael Grimm resigned today, so that leaves 246. Boehner needs 218 votes to remain as Speaker. Now, Representative Walter Jones of North Carolina, I forget which district in North Carolina, said he had been talking to 16 to 18 House Republicans in an effort against Boehner. Presuming his count is correct and they stay unified, the anti-Boehner forces will need another 11 to 13 members to not support the current speaker, either by supporting another candidate or not voting. By the way, just as a reference, in 2013, 9 Republicans voted against Boehner and 3 didn't vote. Now, members of Congress who have said publicly they won't support Boehner include Jones, Representatives Thomas Massey of Kentucky. I wrote about him at politicalpistachio.com recently as well. Jim Bridenstine of Oklahoma, Paul Gosar of Arizona, freshman Gary Palmer of Alabama, Steve King of Iowa, and Yoho and Gamert. Now, I just found it interesting that there are only 18, and only a handful of those 18 are willing to publicly declare that they don't support Boehner. A coup this isn't, it seems to me. So the question becomes, are there another 11 to 13 members willing to cross Boehner? As the old saying goes, if you're going to strike at the king, you better not miss. Boehner has demonstrated he's willing to throw members off committees for being too loudly and openly rebellious. Now, Yoho and Gamert are correct that the first hurdle is preventing 218 votes on the first ballot. But note that neither Yoho, in only his second term, nor Gamert, one of the most conservative members of the conference, will have an easy time cobbling 218 votes together. I mean, it's easy to wonder if the effort to replace Boehner will be better with one candidate instead of two, or whether it's inevitable that one will withdraw quickly on Tuesday. One would hope that Yoho would have already withdrawn. One thing is, Gamert was apparently slow on the draw because it appears that Yoho got his candidacy in first. It'd be kind of like, well, hey, I was here first. You bow out. Give me the open road to the speakership. Although, second term. I mean, how often does that happen? I mean, I'll tell you, Yoho's candidacy seems like a lark, like a stunt, like just making a statement. Whereas Gamert might actually have the possibility of actually taking on Boehner and defeating him, potentially. I'm not saying he actually can or will defeat him, or could or will defeat him, but he'd have more gravitas, it seems to me, than Yoho would. Especially, can you imagine Speaker Yoho? Sounds like a brand of cola. Odds are Boehner will remain as Speaker come tomorrow evening. But it's worth counting heads and seeing how close the number of openly anti-Boehner members gets to 29. There may be some drama yet, but, there are some additional facts about this that y'all need to know. Like I said, I'd forgotten about Yo-ho-ho, who's going to know? So he's running for Speaker too, huh? This dividing the conservative vote and thus dividing the conservative vote and ensuring that Boehner will retain the third-ranking post in the federal government. Lovely. Why can't we right-wingers ever take one for the team and unify behind the strongest single candidate? I mean, couldn't Yoho be convinced to stand aside so that Gamert would at least have a clear, unobstructed run at the Ohioan, at John Boehner, in other words? Of course, I don't know, Speaker Gamert. That's not quite as giggle-inducing as Yoho, but especially in light of this polling detail. This is from Newsmax.com. Louis Gamert said he is running because a recent poll showed that 60% of those who voted Republican in November's midterms did so because they wanted a different speaker. 25% of that 60% said they will not vote for the GOP in 2016 if there isn't a change. Close quote. Now, just to put that in perspective, what would that actually? What would the effect of that actually look like in practice? The GOP took 53% of the total nationwide vote on November 4th of last year. Take away 15% of that 53%. and that number would drop to 45, 46%, somewhere in that range, which is approximately where the Republicans were in 2006 and 2008 when they lost a combined 56 seats. Now, who knows if that 25% of the 60% will still feel that way 22 months from now, but it's certainly an ominous statistic. I would say, ladies and gentlemen, particularly given that ticket splitting is much more rare than it used to be. Now, of course, it's not as though the top of the ticket in presidential election years doesn't have a vastly larger influence down ballot than who the House Speaker does up ballot, so your mileage may vary, as it were, but still, why risk it? I mean, let's face fact. Can we just be completely and brutally honest here? John Boehner, and I've defended John Boehner the last few years many times at politicalpistachio.com, here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, on American Daily Review, and Constitution Radio. I have defended John Boehner. I have thought for years that John Boehner had one of, if the most thankless jobs in Washington, D.C. I mean, think about it. He from a very narrow and inadequate power base, he had to do battle with both Barack Obama and Dirty Harry Greed on one side, while he was trying to keep Tea Party long knives out of his ribs. I mean, he had to look in both directions. He was surrounded by enemies. And in addition to which, a leadership position in politics is akin to herding cats. I mean, because basically, leadership has some leverage over members in terms of committee assignments and help with fundraising. You know, like the in the House, it's the congressional campaign committees for both parties, and the party, you know, the party national committees to some extent. But as has been said many times, the House of Representatives is basically 435 political entrepreneurs, you might say. So it's akin to herding cats. You know, it's just a very, very, very thankless job, because as I've also lamented many times over the years, Republicans, for conservatives, for Republicans, for the right in general, we have so much more difficulty staying on the same page, unifying behind a single leader or a single cause than the left and the Democrats do. Maybe just because they're collectivists and we're individualists. I don't know, but it's just very, very frustrating, and that's speaking as somebody who's completely outside of it, just a humble commentator up in the upper left corner of the country, 3,000 miles away from the nation's capital, or just about as far as you can get from it and still be within the continental United States, to be quite honest with you. Now, imagine how it must be for John Boehner to be right there smack in the middle of it at metaphorical ground zero. So I defended John Boehner. I have. But God love him, he's a spent force. I mean, I speculated more than once on whether he even still wanted the House's top job, and it's pretty clear that whether or not he was ever up to it, the Cromnibus fiasco amply demonstrated that he certainly isn't up to it now, or anymore, if you want to be charitable. I mean, it's like a starting pitcher when he starts to get tired late in a baseball game and gets in a bases-loaded jam. Now, if you're the manager, what do? Do you leave him in there and leave him to get slaughtered and lose the game? Or do you take him out and put in a relief pitcher? I think we all know the answer to that question. But the problem is, politics is not baseball. John Boehner is actually the manager in that metaphor, and he isn't likely to send himself to the showers, which gets back to Ted Yoho clogging up the speaker selection process. If the contest were a three-way between Boehner, Nancy Pelosi, and Louis Gaymert, and Gaymert out Boehner for, well, first or second place, assuming, of course, that 60% figure that I mentioned earlier translates to the GOP caucus vote, which, probably not. But if that were the case, then per House rules, a second head-to-head matchup would ensure that Louis Gaymert got the gavel and Boehner was deposed, or at least presumably it would. But with Yoho getting in the way, and he declared his speaker candidacy before Gaymert did, remember, so he's got a head start of sorts, the chances of Boehner surviving are dramatically enhanced. Or maybe nobody is taking this insurgency seriously outside the GOP grassroots at all, and Gaymert and Yoho will be mercilessly crushed like overripe grapes. Let me recall that there are only, and allegedly, since most won't publicly out themselves, as I alluded to earlier, a maximum of 18 Boehner opponents, and 29 votes are needed to deny Boehner an outright majority on the first ballot. Although, you know what, just as a caveat, at least some in the GOP establishment, quote-unquote, appear to be sufficiently skittish at the possibility of an anti-Boehner rebellion that they're circulating fear-mongering disinformation. As in, and I quote, typically there are only two candidates for House Speaker, one Democrat and one Republican, with the candidate for the majority party winning. Gaymert said that many in the party establishment have warned that if more than one Republican runs, it could hand the speakership to House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. Now, of course, that could only happen if at least 59 Republicans abstained from voting at all, 59 being almost a quarter of the majority caucus in the House. And that's not very bloody likely. I mean, think about it, folks. If Ted Cruz, number one, voted in the Senate Majority Leader contest, and two, voted for Mitch McConnell, does anybody believe that the biggest GOP majority in the House in 86 years would allow the big gavel to fall into crazy Nancy Pelosi's hand? I mean, we all know the Republicans are the stupid party, but let's not abuse the privilege, shall we? So, I mean, it's been 92 years since there was more than one round of voting for House Speaker. 1923, ladies and gentlemen. Here's hoping Ted Yoho gets a clue and bows out so that Louis Gaymert has a chance to make things interesting. After all, the longevity of the GOP majority may just depend on it. Time is running out to do something stupid and irreversible. Act now! Now, writes Kevin Williamson today at NRO, especially when followed by an exclamation point or written in all capital letters. Or now! Conservative word in the English language. We must act now, proclaims a gentleman bearing the appropriately apocalyptic name of Flood in the letters section of the Times Argus of Vermont. The subject is of course, global warming. unjust and immoral for us to leave a damaged and hostile world to our children. We need to act now. From flood to exodus. Act now or Act now or the homeless could move to San Francisco, warns a writer in Chico, California, and Williamson is just enough of a crusty old right-winger to wonder what the downside is for Chico in that case. Yeah, I wonder about that too, Kev. The new year is inevitably a time of rhetorical immediacy. Now to shed fat added over the holidays. Well, no, it's not that you haven't actually started to do that. It's just that it takes pretty much an entire lifetime. And the page just shifted on me. Let's see. Sorry, got to get back to where I was. Okay, there's where I was. Now is a rhetorical short circuit, a way to preempt anyone thinking too deeply about a proposition. In Bill de Blasio's New York, the streets are full of idiotic riffraff chanting, "What do we want? Dead cops! When do we want it? Now!" When the country is convulsed by the shooting of a petty criminal in the suburbs of St. Louis, the answer, according to the sort of people who made de Blasio mayor, is dead cops in New York. Don't bother pointing out how little sense that makes. The now punctuating that murderous sentiment is all you need to know, or is all you need to know. Not that killing police in Missouri is any more sensible, but I was puzzled about why New York City had become the locus of anti-police protests until I tightened in and asked further why within New York it is the site around Union Square rather than one police plaza or Staten Island, the scene of Eric Garner's death at the hands of the NYPD, that is the center of the scene. The answer, so near as I can tell, is the bars are better. What do we want? Craft beers. When do we want them? Now! That's my best Barney Gumble impression. Now is the eternal cry of the infantile. Mine! 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 What does baby want? Diaper change. When does baby want it? Now! Of course, Barack Obama, who has a keen appreciation of that fact, has made immediacy the hallmark of his totalitarian, dictatorial, tyrannical style. You know, I mean, we can't wait. Remember that? Executive amnesty, minimum wage, climate change, these are all within the realm of the holy now. The sort of thing that cannot wait. Wait for what? Democracy? American constitutional republicanism? Let me tell you something, folks. The Founding Fathers were the antithesis of now! They were a patient bunch. And they were willing to risk everything on behalf of it, folks. Their lives, their fortunes, their sacred honor. Barack Obama does his stentorian best to beat some meaning into the fierce urgency of now, the phrase from Martin Luther King Jr., around which he once organized a famous speech almost entirely devoid of content. That this is so effective a strategy is despair-inducing, although it does reflect the infantilization of American society and culture. Grown men and facsimiles thereof are routinely taken in by this sort of thing. Consider Andrew Sullivan's soft spot for Obama's dopey, fierce urgency of now shtick, taking it as evidence that the empty suit from Chicago meets a moment in history. Well, maybe his overabundance of pigmentation did, but that's about it. In truth, Obama's now huckstering should be utterly familiar to anybody who has ever seen poor Henry Winkler, looking like a Madame Tussauds wax sculpture of himself, on television hawking reverse mortgages and promising you a free lighted magnifying reader if you call. No! Not later. Not after talking to a financial advisor or your family or somebody who might have experienced a similar products, but now! Because what is your moldy old family home compared with a shiny new free lighted magnifying reader? A strange choice of promotional items at that, giving the oldsters a means to read the fine print while discouraging them from thinking too hard about it. Now is the compact variation on the time for debate is over. Remember, that's another of Barack Obama's catchphrases, isn't it? Which, as Jonah Goldberg points out, it always is when a Democrat is losing the argument. But at the same time when the left is winning the argument, too. Paul Krugman of the New York Times is arguably the most influential public intellectual of the Obama era, which isn't really saying much. But when he addresses hoi polloi, his rhetorical style is pure PhD, as in piled high and deep. Where those three letters denote, well, piled high and deep or pretty heavy diapers, one of the two. End this depression now was the title of his communique to the general public. Which one? The one that he imagined or the one that Barack Obama has actually inflicted upon us? In fact, Paul Krugman actually said just today, was in the headlines. In fact, I think it was the headline of his latest column in the New York Times. Presidents get way too much credit for strong economies and way too much blame for weak ones, except for Barack Obama. That's the argument that his PhD is now making to the hoi polloi, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, neither Krugman's doctoral thesis nor his Nobel lecture contained an exclamation point in its title, but well, again, I mean that's what he's been reduced to. That's what the entire left has been reduced to in the hopefully waning days of the Obama-nancy. And Ferguson protesters bucked at being co-opted by the self-serving antics of Al Sharpton, Inc., Kirsten West, I don't remember that ever manifesting itself. If it did, it wasn't obvious. Kirsten West Sabalai of The Root chalked that up to the fierce urgency of now and its uncanny ability to inspire young people to bum rush the mic, to use the fierce urgency of slang from 1987. In 2012, Peter Dinklage led a band of po-faced celebrities taking, by the way, that's you might know him better from most recently his role as Boulevard Trask in X-Men Days of Future Past from this past May. Anyway, Dinklage took time out from the extraordinarily profitable creation of blood-drenched entertainment to advise the sort of people who take their political cues from Game of Thrones actors to demand a plan right now on gun control. The accumulation of celebrity brain around Dinklage would not enough neuroelectric juice to fire up one of Henry Winkler's free lighted magnifying readers, but never mind. Now is the point, the alpha and the omega. Don't just stand there thinking carefully about the nature of the problem and considering your options with mature judgment. Do something! Dinklage and Will Ferrell, the main artistic forces behind Elf, demand nothing less. Organizing for Action, the permanent Obama campaign, would very much like to sell you a limited edition, while supplies last, poster bearing the slogan, the time to act is now. The catalog of asininity goes on forever. The people who genuinely believe that the existential future of mankind is at stake might be forgiven there now, even as we take note of the fact that practically everything they want, from organic cupcakes, or as I refer to them, rotten cupcakes, to bike lanes, they believe to be necessary to the survival of mankind. Consider this current headline. Let's fix our female Asian American writer blind spot now. To Celeste, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Nig, it's N-G. It's obviously Vietnamese, but I never can remember how to pronounce that. I'm just going to say Nig and hope I'm right. Celeste Nig, a female Asian American who recently published her first novel. Our purported cultural blind spot for female Asian American writers must present an intensely important occasion for the fierce urgency of now. Though she gives cruelly short shrift to female Asian left-handed writers of historical romance novels who work while suffering from sleep apnea and living in states whose names begin with the letter M, women who truly dwell in the shadows of a culture that seems almost aggressively unwilling to take note of them as a group. Because, well, they're entitled. They're entitled to that attention. They're entitled to success. Aren't we all? And the grand person of them all, the National Organization for the National Organization for Ugly, well, you know who I'm talking about. They take now to its fundamental message. What do we want? Whatever we want. When do we want it? Now! Oh, sorry. Now! It's kind of hard for me to hit that high C. My apologies. Which is admittedly a bit of an improvement over what do we want dead children, when do we want them, January 1973 and forward. Yeah. Ironically, now and the woman who embodies its ethic, Gloria Steinem, talk about flabola, have only the most tenuous of connections to the present, being about as much a product of the here and now as the costumes seen on reruns of The Partridge Family. Conservatives should know better, but we are as vulnerable to temptation as anybody. Whoever the nominee is in 2016, expect him to issue a plan for his first day in office, his first 100 days, etc. To which the question is, why? Consider the alternative. My plan is to try to behave in a generally adult fashion, to avoid making hasty decisions, and to consider my options in full knowledge that almost none of our serious national problems has a self-evident solution, that everything is a matter of trade-offs, and that the best we can reasonably hope for is to choose the least bad option in most cases. I am the least bad candidate in this race, and I promise to govern accordingly, and that means few, if any, dramatic moves. Yeah, good luck with that one. That is what we need now, and what now ensures we cannot have. Not now, not ever. More is the pity. We'll be back with hour number 2. Not now, but after these faux commercial words.
My son is 15 years old. He's a big football fan, you know. And I guess it was about a week or so after the Super Bowl. And I remember I wanted to use the bathroom. You know, he was in there.
Johnny, you in there? Dad, I'm taking a shower, all right?
He'd been in there forever. So I went in anyway. And
what the fuck?
there were corks all over the floor. He was taking a shower all right. with champagne, and it wasn't even French.
This father is not alone. Today, millions of adolescents, influenced by what they see on TV, have a serious showering problem.
I was up to 3 showers a day. I didn't care. Dom Perignon, Great Western, even Miller High Life.
That's beer.
Yeah, but that's the champagne of bottled beer.
Did you ever drink it?
No, it tastes terrible. But showering in it, man, you can't beat it. I felt just like Joe Montana, only sticky.
Talk to your kids. Tell them that showering in champagne is stupid and wasteful unless you're making $6 million a year.
Sure, when it comes to sex, you're responsible, but now they're marketing big-size condoms, and frankly, you'd need a belt and suspenders to keep one on. Well, don't be embarrassed. Hot Dog House now offers regular-size condoms with big-size package names.
Bob, you dropped something from your wallet.
Oh, my God, it's
Here. Oh, the Hindenburg.
Only kind I use.
Order your regular-size condoms from Hot Dog House with names that give you confidence. The Jolly Mean Giant, Cruise Missile, Pikes Peak, Superdome. Only you'll know the real story for a while.
So, why is there a munchkin riding in the Hindenburg?
Had enough of all those cop shows? Of course not. That's why you'll love the Cop Channel. Constant cop shows 24 hours a day. Tonight at 8, Tyne Daly teams up with the world's smartest police dog on Cagney and Lassie.
Okay, slime ball, hold it right there.
All right. I'll do whatever you want. Just keep that drooling mutt away from me.
Don't you call my Lassie a mutt?
I was talking to the dog.
Then at 9, Richard Simmons hits the streets of San Francisco as an undercover cop in an all-new dragnet.
Up against the wall and spread 'em, bucko.
At 10 o'clock, he's bad, he's blue, and he's taking Sesame Street back from the bad guys. He's the Rookie Monster.
Hold right there, creep. Me see you. Drop cookie and move away from jar. Uh-oh.
So come check out the lineup tonight on the Cop Channel. Constant cop shows 24 hours a day. It's positively arresting.
Hey, believe this. This is Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes, and I used to weigh 92 pounds. I was a cow, man. Then I got on the Slim Crash diet. Now I'm a deathly grim 48 pounds. It's great. The Slim Crash diet is so easy. I have a deep breath for breakfast, a deep breath for lunch, and a sensible Marlboro cigarette for dinner. The Slim Crash diet is fast, and look, no more shoving my fingers down my throat like they'd fit.
Slim Crash, the official diet of anorexic-looking rock bands like the Black Crowes.
From the makers of the Keith Richards Nutra Heroin Diet, abuse as directed.
Y'all be going on vacation? See, the thing is, if you about to be up out this biatch, check it. Peep Delta. We be flying all over this bitch. Let me ask you something. You finna raise up and get your travel on? From the interior to the exterior. You got to get your posterior in one of these big-ass planes. Dog, you lay in the cut straight sitting on your ass and getting your drink on and your snack on while we floss and fly this mofo all over this bitch. East Coast, West Coast, it don't matter. Nia, we'll get you to your hoe and back lickety-split. No Then you be back at your crib chilling with a flat spliff, thinking we was some crazy-ass angel. Hell, these fat, round, thick-ass vessels run up in the sky so deep, it be crying. Yeah, you thought it was rain. So bring a towel, because at Delta, it's laid out like that. Call one of these fly-ass Delta coochies, and make all them punk-ass co-workers of yours catch the vapors as you be off and about. You going? We fly you there. You been? We done already flew up in there. We got you covered like a Jimmy hat. At Delta, we loves us some flying, and it be showing like a motherfucker.
bumper music in the Alpha Quadrant here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network, and this first, the first Monday podcast of the year 2015, Anno Domini, or year 7, year of the one, Obama Domini. Now, continuing the theme of what I refer to as the Polaroid nature of American culture in the early 21st century, which anybody under the age of 40 probably won't even get that reference. You can look it up. I'm not going to explain it to you. You should know these references. And frankly, I suspect most of you do. You are the most intelligent audience in the Alpha Quadrant. But here's the problem with the left and the fierce urgency of now, which is that the presumption of it is always to be bum rushed, to be stampeded, to be panicked into turning over more and more power to Washington, D.C. And the problem with that is pretty much what Ronald Reagan once described it, and Andrew McCarthy reiterates today. Government is not the solution to the problem. Government is the problem. And that, of course, is what Obamianists not only don't get, but it's sacrilege to them, because to them, the state, or I guess now since Barack Obama embodies the state is their God, it's their deity. That's why they worship Barack Obama. I mean, it might just be lip service at this point, since he has turned out, like all his predecessors, to not be the right socialist, but still. No labels. Oh, remember those? Remember that bunch? Seems like a dodge to me, or at least it used to. I'm referring not so much to the no labels group as to its IDEFIX, IDEEFIXE. If that's pronounced differently, so sue me. I've never seen that term before, and I read a lot. The group was established in 2010 by an array of rhinos and what we used to think of as dinos. You know, Republicans in name only, Democrats in name only. Describing itself as a movement, the better to suggest a grassroots surge rather than a Beltway insider gambit, No Labels devotes itself to making Washington work, quote unquote, to transcending partisan and ideological branding, to finding the common ground needed to solve the nation's problems. But what if Washington is the nation's problem? Not the much-touted dysfunction of our central government, but the very conceit that the problems of 320 million people are suitable to being solved by a Beltway political elite whose lives are increasingly remote from those of the people they nominally represent. I mean, to say that No Labels to say that No Labels is a dodge is to use too loaded a word. No Labels members are deeply concerned about our country, so they claim, particularly our security. Their desire to fix what ails us is genuine. Maybe. To my mind, though, they are hearkening to a time more fondly imagined than actually lived. A time when political adversaries put their differences aside and address challenges cooperatively. You know what the time they're referring to is? When the left ruled the country unchallenged. From the FDR era clear through to the election of Ronald Reagan. That's what bipartisanship means. Republicans agreeing with Democrats. Democrats aren't big on bipartisanship when they've got to agree with Republicans. It's a one-way street, one of many one-way streets laid down in American politics by the left. Presuming their good faith, as McCarthy does, and I really don't, it is better to say the project is ill-conceived. Our political divide is about bulls, not labels. Labels have always been given to sets of principles, but principles in politics have never been mutually exclusive. The practice of politics is in a constitutional democracy or a constitutional republic. We really try to avoid the D word here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network because we are not a democracy, or we were never meant to be a democracy by the Founding Fathers in any way, shape, or form. We were meant to be a constitutional federal republic in which power was divided as much as it possibly could be. For stability's sake and the fact that if the governing class, if the public sector was totally divided against itself, it would be that much more difficult for that governing class or public sector to take away the liberties of us, the people. That's how it's supposed to work. So I was trying to stay away from that D word. The practice of politics in a constitutional republic is, after all, the repetition of a calculation about principle, knowing that everyone does not agree with me, but that I have opportunities to convince them over time. I do my wee little part here on the Hard Starboard Radio Network toward that end. How much can I afford to compromise today such that my principles can advance in the short run and prevail in the long run? See, it's not that compromise is a dirty word, but it's perfectly fine as long as it's tactical and not strategic. As long as you're moving the ball forward, you can throw sideline patterns, short-range passes across the middle under coverage. It's football season, so I use football metaphors. You don't have to throw the long bomb necessarily, because those are what's known as higher percentage plays. As long as you're moving the chains and can keep the chains moving, you're winning. And when we talk about impatience and no, there's just as much of that in the Tea Party as there is on the left, which is why the Tea Party is such a thorn in the side, or has been such a thorn in the side, of perfectly staunch conservatives like John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. So it's just something to keep in mind. In other words, we're not immune to it either. Still, the no-labels people do have a point when they argue that labels hinder effective governance. I don't know that this is because the labels make us intransigent. It's because the labels make ever less sense. Their main effect today is to obscure the real scrimmage line in our politics. Now, I'm not just referring to the oft-observed truism that what we commonly call liberal is in fact the antithesis of liberal in the classic sense. The real liberals being those who defend the Constitution's guarantees of individual liberty and state sovereignty against centralized government's overbearing proclivities, namely conservatives, libertarians, constitutionalists. Well, at least those libertarians who actually believe in limited government. In other words, those for whom healthy skepticism about government has not devolved into implacable hostility towards government, even in its essential functions. I mean, it's like, whenever Doug on TV, he's accused of being anti-government. No, he's not anti-government. He's pro-limited government, as are myself and the conservatives in general. We're pro-limited government. The Founding Fathers weren't anti-government. I mean, the very fact that they wrote a constitution indicates that they weren't anti-government, but they wanted that government severely limited in its power and its grasp and its reach, because they wanted to protect the liberties of a free people that they themselves won in the American Revolution. Being pro-limited government is not being anti-government. That's another one of the rhetorical lies of the left. Now, a fascinating op-ed appeared in the Wall Street Journal this week, entitled "The Progressive Case for Fracking." The author, James Bloodworth, really, Bloodworth, okay, is a self-described progressive and the editor of a blog called Left Foot Forward. The piece was compelling, except after reading it, I was sure that I must be a progressive too. Bloodworth's point was that by logic, progressives, or Obamunists as I refer to them, should support the hydraulic fracking revolution forged by American shale producers. Why? Because it has resulted in a steep decline in energy prices and enhanced the prospects for American energy independence, which have royal dictatorships in Tehran, Moscow, Caracas, and Riyadh. That's Iran, Russia, Venezuela, and Saudi Arabia, for those of you in Malaga, Washington. Thus, the emaciation of civil liberty cast by Bloodworth as the bane of Obamunist existence could finally be overcome by a price war with some of the world's vilest regimes. Given that the left's passions are stoked by narratives, the truth of which is beside the point, I doubt an argument employing logic will make much headway, even if offered by another Obamunist. But Bloodworth's argument rests on amnesia. One must forget a history, much of it recent, of Obamunists coddling autocrats, turning a deaf ear to civil rights advocates, and rationalizing the vileness of dictatorial regimes as a regrettable but understandable reaction to something, or is it everything, that America has done. The most notable thing about Bloodworth's piece, though, is why it had to be written. While it's not at all clear that Obamunists oppose tyranny, far from it, they're tyrants themselves, their opposition to fracking is unstinting, as is their opposition to all carbon-based energy production, which is to say their opposition to all energy production, except for their own use. Hostility is based on a narrative about saving the planet. The last thing it will permit is celebration of collapsing prices that encourage more energy consumption. Not unless Obamunists are suddenly going to start being a lot more progressive than liberals are liberals. And when I say progressive, I mean genuinely progressive, not regressive, but genuinely progressive. In other words, conservative, constitutionalist, right-wing, classical liberal. Or as Doug confusingly refers to himself as, a classical centrist. Although that label does have the virtue of causing people to say, what the heck is that? And then you get the chance to explain. It's a witnessing technique for my Christian brothers and sisters out there. Now this matters because Obamunists run Washington from the White House. The energy revolution has happened in spite of the federal government. It's driven by liberty, that the tattered shards of which still somehow exist. Private property far removed from the Beltway, exploited by private entrepreneurial initiative. Once again, the issue is not whether Democrats in Washington have better ideas about regulation. It is about the widening disconnect between an entrenched, meddlesome left-wing ruling elite and a people for whom the concept of self-government does not entail being ruled. What doesn't work in Washington is Washington. It's office holders for life, starting with the ruler, the dictator in the White House. Its strangling bureaucratic sprawl, its incestuous network of staffers and lobbyists, its naked cronyism, its invested media propagandists. The gridlock bewailed by Beltway insiders is actually a sign of political health, not dysfunction. That's what the Founding Fathers intended. It is supposed to be difficult to make dramatic, huge, destabilizing changes. It's supposed to take a long time. I mean, why do you think that as hard and as relentlessly as the left pushes for major change, that they can only manage to do it about once every third of a century. New Deal in the 1930s, the Great Society in the 1960s, and then it was another almost 50 years before we got the current age of the one. It's supposed to be difficult to do, folks. Our constitutional system is designed to limit the central government's influence, which is why Barack Obama has so little regard for, and not to say nothing of abject contempt for, the United States Constitution. I mean, it's not because we don't have serious problems, but because those problems are best addressed locally, where their causes are intimately understood and their impacts acutely felt. And there's greater accountability of elected officials to the people who elected them. I live in the state of Washington. Now, is it easier for me to go to Olympia to petition my state government for the redress of grievances? Or is it easier to go 3,000 miles away to Washington, D.C. to do it? Or you could take that in the opposite direction. Is it easier to go to your local city council meeting and sound off, or drive, in my case, the 35 miles to my state capital? Yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. Gibbs and I were talking about that off the air on the phone just this morning, as a matter of fact. That's why Doug's focus is local. That's where he can have the biggest impact, and then it trickles up. Yeah, we're trying to get a national presence, a national radio program, and maybe get on One America Network, perhaps, depending on how things shake out. But he's focusing locally, because that is where he can have the biggest impact. That is where he is having the biggest impact, and then you can build upon that to have influence at the state level and then at the national level. That's how the process works. That's how the process is supposed to work in politics. However much good government types, quote unquote, despise gridlock, it does not signify an inability to solve problems, but the reality that for most problems the solution is elsewhere to be found. Of course, that undermines their power, now doesn't it? The Constitution's impediments against federal intrusion and radical change have been greatly eroded, but to the degree they still exist at all, they still work. They're designed to frustrate not only radicals who want change and good government types who want solutions, but liberty lovers who want the Constitution's impediments more rigorously enforced, which is why Tea Partiers get so frustrated. They want to just take it all back all at once, and that's not how our system is designed. It's deteriorated to a great deal for us to reach this nadir in American history, but it's still, we can't expect it to work in our favor any differently than we didn't want it to work in the other side's favor, the enemies of the Constitution. We got to play the hand we're dealt, in other words. Naturally, that breeds rancour and label-laden name-calling, but that's nothing new, and historically we've had far worse, although it's kind of difficult to believe. Then you play those faux campaign commercials of Thomas Jefferson and John Adams from the 1800 election that Doug has on Constitution Radio, and and then you think, well, maybe it has been worse in the past. Now, political labels do not paralyze us. The worst thing about the traditional labels, Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative, is their tendency to obfuscate rather than illuminate the real fault line. When Andrew McCarthy encounters politicians these days, he's less interested in whether they style themselves as constitutional conservatives or pragmatic Obamianists. I want to know one thing. Do you want to make Washington work or work against what Washington has become? Although I have to point this out, Andrew, Mr. McCarthy, between a constitutional conservative and a pragmatic Obamunist, which do you think will be more likely to work against what Washington has become? That right-wing impatience, the Tea Party impatience I was referring to. Well, on no issue is it more hair-lip obvious than Obamacare. We want Obamacare repeal. Republicans aren't doing enough to get rid of Obamacare. Never mind that the House has voted on at least 40 different occasions to fully repeal Obamacare. And then, they all died on Harry Greed's desk. I mean, I want to get rid of Obamacare as much as anybody else. I'm a conservative. I'm a constitutional conservative. A conservative and a constitutionalist. I am your ruler, your benevolent despot, your fountain rabbi of conservatism, constitutionalism, Christianity, and common sense, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, at blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network. Producer of most, not all, but most of the material, the copy on politicalpistachio.com. So you all know this. I'm as big an enemy of Obamacare as anybody. It's absolutely unconstitutional. It's a boondoggle. It's a huge waste of time. In fact, I just posted something right before showtime this afternoon at politicalpistachio.com about how Harvard professors are now bitching and moaning that their health care premiums are going up. Many of the same people who argued for, who defended, who advocated universal health care, quote unquote, for years and years and years, and then finally got what they were looking for in Obamacare. And now they're bitching and moaning because their health care premiums have gone up. In other words, it was for us, it was not for them. They said they were doing it to benefit us. They said, we're going to lower your premiums and give you better care and make sure everybody has it. And it's not done any of those things. All it's done is take away health care and make the health care we have more expensive. And now they're bitching and moaning and complaining because they're not exempt from it. And typically, one Harvard professor accused Harvard of corporatizing. Instead of what? Absorbing the cost themselves and going out of business? They'll never get it, or they'll never publicly admit it if they do. It's just, it's hugely hilarious. So, I mean, I want to get rid of it too. All of you out there who are just who are just sick to death, sick to your stomach over the very concept of Obamacare, I'm with you all the way. But there's a problem, and that's that our constitutional system is not designed for massive swings and changes either direction. And so, past few years, Harry Greed has been in the way. Now we got the Senate back. And now Barack Obama is going to be in the way. Now, that's not saying that the 114th GOP Republican-controlled Congress, both houses, shouldn't try to get rid of Obamacare. It's not that they shouldn't pass a bill repealing it in toto and replacing it, but if they do pass it, it's just going to be vetoed by Barack Obama. And that's what conservatives need to understand. Democrats worked over multiple cycles to get the power that they had, that they used in turn to shove Obamacare down our throats. I mean, they were pushing for socialized medicine for 80 years, and then they finally got it. Do you really think, my Tea Party friends, that we're going to get rid of it like that? I don't think so. Now, DeRoy Murdoch advises full speed ahead. Or I suppose you could say, now! He even thinks they're going to pick up some Democrats en route, which I'd be seriously surprised if we did. I mean, maybe a Joe Manchin of West Virginia, or I don't know. Are there any others? Joe Manchin, maybe Heidi Heitkamp of North Dakota. I wouldn't count on her, although she didn't vote for Obamacare originally. So, I mean, the Democrats who came to the Senate from 2010 forward might be able to pull that off, but I still would be very surprised to see it. Now, writes DeRoy Murdoch at NRO today, the new Republican Congress should move full speed ahead to repeal and replace Obamacare. It will be unwise to wait for the Supreme Court to perform this service for the American people, although really, in practical terms, nothing's going to happen until the Supreme Court rules on the subsidy issue. You know, subsidies only by the terms of Obamacare itself, the Unaffordable Care Less Act, subsidies only coming through state cartels. So anything that comes from the federal cartel, the federal side, healthcare.gov, those subsidies are illegal by the terms of Obamacare itself. And so the Supreme Court's going to have to rule on that before there's ever actually any impact on Obamacare, because for at least the next couple of years, there's no chance of any repeal or any partial or in toto repeal of Obamacare. It's just not going to happen. He's going to veto it. He's going to block it. He's not going to allow his crown jewel. He's not going to let his greatest accomplishment be gutted. It's just not going to happen, folks. I wonder if Mr. Murdoch understands that. No, that's not saying Republicans shouldn't do it, just to continue to lay the groundwork for 2016. Underscore the need. Well, you know what? We need one more step. We need the White House back. We need the White House back to go with the House and the Senate. With GOP command of Capitol Hill starting tomorrow, Republicans should use their hard-won mandate to obliterate Obama's medical Godzilla. Well, if only we actually could. A record 58% of registered voters want to junk Obamacare, according to a December 10th Fox News survey. As well they should. Among other recently revealed shortcomings, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation's Employer Health Benefits 2014 annual survey, the Employee Cost-Sharing chapter, the average deductible for individual plans has climbed from $826 in 2009 to $1,217 in 2014. By the way, that's an increase of 47% in 5 years, or an average of about 9.4% a year on Obama's watch. Also, a Commonwealth Fund survey discovered that 40% of working-age adults have skipped medical treatments because they cost too much. Death panels, anybody? Let's see. We don't need that graph. So much for Obama's promise of quality, affordable health care. Some nervous Republicans may prefer to let the Supreme Court neutralize Obamacare through King versus Burwell, the aforementioned federal health care or Obamacare subsidies case, which it will hear on March the 4th. Now, this case will determine the legality of subsidies that Obamacare pays enrollees in 36 states that rely on the federal healthcare.gov website rather than their own because, of course, they declined to set any up. Now, who knows what the Supreme Court might do? It could delight Obamacare fans, as happened in 2012. A painfully narrow decision could specify how many nurses can dance on the tip of a hypodermic needle but otherwise leave people perplexed. A decisive victory for Obamacare foes could transform this debate into 36 distinct conversations as governors and legislators in states without homegrown cartels decide their next step. If Washington Republicans expect to maintain a coherent message amid such chaos, they should start popping stronger antipsychotics. Okay, in other words, what Murdoch is talking about here is messaging. Having one clear, coherent, overarching message that we can take into 2016. We, again, both houses of Congress, we together passed a law repealing Obamacare. We sent it to Obama. He vetoed it. We passed it again. We sent it to Obama. He vetoed it. We need the White House back to get this done. I hope that messaging is the context in which DeRoy Murdoch is speaking here, because in that case, he's absolutely right. If he's thinking in terms of passing an Obamacare repeal and forcing Barack Obama to sign it, kind of like how Ted Cruz was trying to bamboozle House Republicans into defunding Obamacare, which really wasn't a defunding because most of the spending is mandatory, quote unquote, and forcing the Senate Democrats to pass it and forcing Obama to sign it, and all of that was pipe dream material. And so would be the idea that we can force Obama to sign a repeal of his baby, as it were. So if that's the context in which DeRoy Murdoch is speaking, well, then he should start popping stronger antipsychotics. I hope he's talking about messaging, because messaging, it makes sense. And again, to use a football metaphor, sometimes you play field position. If you're deep in your own territory, you run the ball, and if you can get a first down, fine. If you don't, then you punt it away, and then you put your defense out there, get a 3-and-out from the other team. Maybe they get off a short punt, and you get the ball further up the field, and eventually you're going to score. That's really the kind of game we're in, folks. That's really the best we can hope for at this point. And this is coming from somebody who believes that we already lost a couple of years ago. So just understand that. At best, Murdoch writes, a wait for the Supreme Court strategy could banish this vital issue to a judicial backburner until the Supreme Court adjourns in late June. The court will do what the court will do, and so should Congress. Thus, the House should adopt full and immediate repeal of Obamacare. The Senate should vote on such a measure in a filibuster-proof procedure, such as budget reconciliation. And I always said, we get the Senate back to go with the House. That we should shove repeal down their throats exactly the same way that they shoved Obamacare down our throats. That's how Democrats enacted Obamacare, so sauce for the goose, sauce for the gander. Some nervous Democrats who survived their party's slaughter last November, it's not impossible that they might support repeal. Although I seriously doubt any of them would. If Murdoch believes that, I think he's forgotten what it was like just a few years ago. Actually, forgotten what it was like just a couple of months ago, for that matter. Although, they would theoretically have cover to do so, to support repeal, now that Democrat Senators Tom Harkin of Iowa, Charles Schumer of New York, and even Harry Reid of Nevada have denounced Obamacare as a costly, convoluted, unforced error. Well, that's not exactly how they phrased it. They were referring to the political cost for congressional Democrats. They weren't talking about Obamacare itself as a policy. But I digress. And, of course, Obama would veto such a measure, and, well, that's kind of the idea. For how long now? Well, actually, it's 4 years since the Republicans got the House back in 2010. Ever since then, all we heard is Republicans are obstructionists. Republicans are standing in the way. Republicans are racist because they refuse to work with our president, and blah, 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 blah. No. Since we have the Senate back to go with the House, why can't we turn that around? Why can't we pass one popular conservative bill after another and make Barack Obama veto every last one of them, and then try to make the case, to turn around and say, well, we got a do-nothing Congress? Whenever a liberal says that, whenever a Democrat says that, we got a do-nothing Congress, what that really means is Republicans aren't governing the way we would. They're not doing what we want. Do nothing means do nothing socialist, do nothing liberal, do nothing big government. Don't expand the government. Don't expand spending. Don't raise taxes. You get the idea. A Congress, the House, for all that it's been maligned and smeared and criticized over the past 4 years for doing nothing, the House has been busy as bees. One job, pro-free enterprise, pro-economic growth, and which includes getting rid of Obamacare, a bill after another. Dozens of them, hundreds of them over the past 4 years, and they've all died on Harry Reid's desk. The House hasn't been do-nothing. The House hasn't been obstructionist. That's Harry Reid and the Democrat Senate. Anything but peace, politically speaking. It's the Democrats who are the obstructionists. It's Harry Reid who's been the obstructionist on Barack Obama's behalf. Now he's going to have to do it himself. There's not going to be any Republican House, Democrat Senate, and not get anything done, and gridlock. Now there's not going to be any gridlock on Capitol Hill, or at least a minimum of it. I really hope that Mitch McConnell doesn't restore the old Senate rules. I really hope he doesn't get rid of Harry Reid's nuking of the confirmation filibuster, judicial and executive branch appointments. I really hope he doesn't get rid of that. Made his bed a year and a half ago. Now let his Democrats lie in it. He short-sheeted it. Now let them try to lie in it. Let them try to sleep in it. Just desserts, as it were. Barack Obama veto an Obamacare repeal. Let him veto the Keystone Pipeline. Let him veto tax cuts. Let it veto. And to depict himself for what he is, an obstructionist. Sounds like a plan to me. However, the GOP move should make Obama very nervous. Now, what subsequent move might that be, you might be asking? Congress next should adopt the Like Your Plan, Keep Your Plan Act 2015. It should simply read, the Unaffordable Care Less Act notwithstanding, all Americans who like their health care plans may keep their health care plans, period. Period. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 20 words. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. 20 words versus, what was it, 2,800 pages? Yeah, a hell of a difference there. Now, many Democrats would find it hard to oppose a bill that lets satisfied Americans maintain their coverage, especially after millions have had theirs taken away from them. Republicans should tell Obama on 37 different occasions, according to PolitiFact.com, you publicly promised the American people that if they liked their plans, they could keep them. And if they liked their doctors, they could keep them. We want to give you one final opportunity to keep this solemn pledge to the nation that elected and re-elected you to the White House. Of course, the fact that the nation elected and re-elected Barack Obama to the White House doesn't say much for the nation, does it? Obama could sign that bill and make ObamaCare voluntary, but of course he never will. Alternatively, he could veto it, which he absolutely would, and confirm once and for all that out lied to the American people as he sold them a barge full of fraudulent goods. Of course, I think that as November the 4th illustrated, I think a solid majority of the American people already get that. That would be a tough legacy-defining decision, and Obama would have to make it himself, and well, I think we know what he would decide. Even as he was claiming the exact opposite. Republicans haven't been in control of the Senate even more than a few weeks, and already they're trying to take away your health care. Would he convince anybody with it at this stage of the game? A majority? Some people, sure. A majority? Maybe, maybe not. I would have said absolutely not before November 4th, but now maybe there's a chance. It's within the realm of possibility. Republicans should keep tossing Obamacare reform measures on Obama's desk like confetti at a New Year's Eve. Let Obama decide to sign or veto separate bills to scrap the job-crushing, cure-killing medical device tax. Free individuals to buy plans with tax-free dollars. Allow Americans to purchase insurance across state lines. Permit patients to secure coverage through private associations and civic groups. Revamp malpractice lawsuits and authorize risk pools and other institutions to assist those with pre-existing conditions. Let me see here. Veto, and veto. That's one of the aspects of the next few years that's really going to be ugly. Is we're going to see just how obstructionist he really can be. I mean, and it's not that he hasn't been up to now. It's just that now it's going to be indelibly visible. He's not going to be able to get away from it because he doesn't have Harry Reid to run interference for him anymore. He's got to do all the heavy lifting himself. I guess we'll see if his extremism has the stamina that it needs to really be effective. Although Democrats uniformly would reject a single gigantic Obamacare overhaul, each of these discrete modifications almost certainly would attract Democrat votes. Thus, Republicans would generate bipartisan support for creative ideas to replace Obamacare one piece at a time. Even Obama might support. No, he won't support any of these changes. I'll believe that when I see it, and maybe not even then. Republicans should encourage his collaboration. They'll never get it. In terms of politics, this strategy would unify Republicans and divide Democrats, which is just the thing you want to do going into a presidential election cycle. As Republican law, that's one of the political advantages of having control of Congress. You control the legislative agenda. That gives you the ability, or at least a competitive ability with the White House, to set the agenda, frame the political landscape, frame the debate for the next election. Let's take advantage of it. I'm seeing more and more that Murdoch is talking about messaging, and that's a very good thing. As Republican lawmakers embrace these individual initiatives unanimously, or very nearly so, Democrats would they might peel away from their caucus and vote with Republicans on one bill after another. I still wouldn't count on much of that. While Republicans harmonized from the same hymnal, Democrats would howl at each other in their cloakrooms as members of the Donkey Party in varying numbers and combinations crossed the aisles to sing with the elephants in their midst, assuming, of course, they ever really did. In terms of policy, Americans finally would see in broad daylight the features of Republican-crafted, market-driven, patient-centered, lower-cost, limited government health care reform. If Obama did cooperate, which he never will, don't count on it. I'm telling you. But I mean, if he did, well, great. He won't. When he becomes president, no. Americans soon will understand why they should elect a chief executive in 2016 who will sanction such major surgery. Excuse me. Skywalker! And as America's top jurists ponder King versus Burwell, Congress's diligent efforts to slay this reviled beast, hopefully will not go unnoticed. One of the points of Obamacare, and it's the reason why all the crap was backfilled. It's like an NFL contract. Oh, so and so just signed a $103 million 7-year contract, and guess where most of the money is? It's in the out years. It's at the end of the contract because, of course, aside from signing bonuses, NFL contracts aren't guaranteed. Like Colin Kaepernick signed a $102 million contract a year ago, and then look at the season he had this year. And so, do you think that he's ever going to see most of that money? I would say no. He got a signing bonus, and who knows whether he'll ever see most of that money. I would suggest it's at least possible that he won't. And it's much the same way with Obamacare. The goodies were all up front. The staying on your parents' insurance until you're 26. The no pre-existing conditions, getting rid of that. Whereas the stuff that everybody hates was deferred till after the 2012 election. Now it's hit. Now everybody knows that it's not just an abstraction. It is a real-life nightmare of tyranny and bureaucracy and higher premiums, the opposite of everything Barack Obama promised. And so now is the opportunity to lay the groundwork for getting the last piece of the puzzle, for getting rid of it, and that is the White House. In that context, here is what Mitch McConnell said on CNN State of the Union yesterday.
First thing that will reach his desk that he doesn't like will be?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. Look, he obviously has doubled down on defending ObamaCare. We think it's a terrible piece of legislation. We're certainly going to be voting on that if we can put either repeal or take out pieces of it, like, destroying the 40-hour work week, the medical device tax, the individual mandate. All of these are highly unpopular with the American people. Now, we'll be voting on things I know he's not going to like. I hope we can put them on his desk.
So there it is, folks. Is it possible? Can the stupid party do something smart and lay the groundwork for the ultimate triumph in 2016? We shall see. Just 22 hours and 2 minutes from now, you will be back here for more of the Hard Starboard Radio Network. Talk to you tomorrow. blogtalkradio.com/HSR Network.